All right, good afternoon, everyone. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Friday. I finally made it out here towards the weekend. November 21st, 2025, 11:58 a.m. California time. By the way, member drawing will be held later this afternoon. Looking at earthquake activity, latest on the globe shows a 4.3 earthquake across the Aleutian Trench here. That earthquake coming in within the last hour or so, 44 kilometers deep. Quite a bit of movement happening out here. Some renewed super deep earthquake activity. Look at this one down in the Fiji area, 5.6. And that's a moderate earthquake down there. But the depth of that earthquake is the important part. That is 517 kilometers. That's about as deep as they get. Quite a bit of deep activity over here across the Indonesia area. Notice these rings are raised well off the globe. That would put this whole area out here into a window of potential for larger scale movement. These deeper quakes are no joke. They normally tend to trigger up quite a bit of stress at the surface level, so watch those subduction zones. Northern California, let's see what we got here. There's that earthquake from yesterday. There was a fairly deep earthquake here into the Cascadia subduction zone down there around where the tremor activity stirs up. That was a 2.6, 20 miles deep. Nothing further to report here for now. One earthquake up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, it looks like, near Forest Hill. Kind of an odd earthquake, but occasionally we'll get some earthquakes up there. Nothing big. The Bay Area, skipping over this movement because it's geothermal operations up there around the Clear Lake volcanic field. Looking at the Bay Area, number of earthquakes here today, including the one outside of Pacifica. Quite a few ones out here. The largest here in this cluster is going to be a 2.3. I'm laughing because when I do my update videos and post the titles there, sometimes I use the autocorrect feature, and in yesterday's update, in the morning update, it said earthquake activity continuing at the San Francisco Bar area. I don't know why it said that. I specifically put in Bay, it corrected to Bar, and I didn't notice it until way late. So I was wondering, I started getting all these comments like, well, if it's at a bar, I can't remember exactly what they said, but yeah, sometimes mistakes happen. I'm only human. But San Francisco Bay Area. Couple earthquakes there this morning around the Calaveras Fault. One from today, a little 1.7. I still think we're going to see something out here, just the way the Bay Area has been behaving recently, with a lot of earthquake activity across numerous fault systems, including the plate boundary out here, which is the San Andreas Fault. So it's been quite elevated. Down here in the San Luis Obispo area near Templeton, couple more earthquakes overnight, 2.8 and 1.5. All this other activity from yesterday. This has been a pretty decent source here of earthquake activity, with about 30 earthquakes coming in the last week, including the largest so far, a 4.1. Definitely some movement happening out here across the West Coast. Nothing big yet, but man, it's I feel like it should be getting close here. Southern California, let's see what we got for 2.5 and above. Yesterday, a couple. One more this morning near the Bodfish area. That's kind of in an odd location up here, north of the Garlock Fault shear zone, outside of Bakersfield. I'm sure there's fault systems out here outside of Bakersfield there. Let me see. But, yeah, there's a couple other faults. I think those are unnamed faults out here, but those are seeing some earthquake activity up here. Just be on guard, folks. A lot of interesting activity here over the last couple of years in terms of the Ridgecrest earthquake there back in 2019, right? That was an interesting event. But this shear zone out here kind of acts as a barrier, and when this stirs up earthquake activity, you know that this is under quite a bit of strain. This locked area here, the southern portion of the San Andreas Fault, is it's there. It's at its maximum level, and I think beyond the maximum level, it's just a matter of time before we see a big event out here. Waiting to see what all this rainfall does to the faults. Haven't seen any major uptick yet in terms of, the rainfall seeping down and maybe providing a little bit of lubrication there for the faults that could unstick them, get that stress relief out there. But I have yet to see it. Sometimes it does take a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, but no big earthquake activity out here for now. But we're at maximum pressurization there across the Southern California region. A couple earthquakes up around Mount Rainier as well, including a 2.2. This is going to stir up the news, right? A couple websites out here recently said that there was some harmonic tremor going on at Mount Rainier, and that just wasn't the case. We see a lot of wind events out there. We'll see exposed stations showing ice buildup. We'll go over and check that out right now, see what we got. That's Yellowstone. Mount Rainier, there's that earthquake activity right up at the summit area. Let's see if this station's picking up any other earthquake. See, this is not harmonic tremor. That looks like it could be a bunch of wind. I don't know what the wind is up there right now, but we'll check a little bit later. This seismograph station, though, is fairly accurate. It doesn't normally have all these false readings. There's those earthquakes. They actually showed up quite nicely for a 2.2 and a 0.5. Now, the 2.2 was at 1054. 1054, so that's going to be this one, right? That's going to be the 2-pointer. And then we got another earthquake at 1103 of a 0.5. 1103 of 0.5 is going to be this one right here, the red one, not this another blue one. That's another 2-pointer. Maybe slightly less than that 2-pointer, but yeah, that's when the magnitudes show up like that and squash all these other small little ones. That means that's that should have actually been announced on here. The USGS should have put that up on the map. This is just one of those times here where, it should have been. I get it. Some of these other small microquakes are way below that 2.0 threshold, but they counted this one right here, right? That at about 11:03 is when it happened. 11:03 for a 0.5. So if they're going to count this one, that red one, why not all these other ones out here, Or all these, a bunch of earthquakes as well? I think so. And I've been saying it since supposedly the swarm died down. This is where I disagree with the lack of reporting when it comes to the USGS, even some of these small microquakes. Now, if we started to see a whole bunch of 2s popping up here and no reporting on their side, that's a little concerning. We're not seeing that yet. There's at least one 2-pointer. What about this one here at well, that was at about 10:05 or so. Those aren't even reported on there. A number of earthquakes overnight, looks like. It just auto refresh by itself. If that's going to be a 0.3, that means that's got to be a 0.3. That's got to be a 0.3, or maybe even larger out here. There's definitely almost another 2-pointer right there in the last hour. So we'll watch that. I don't see any harmonic tremor. The tremor would show up broadly across all of these seismograph stations, but there is definitely earthquake activity that's showing up and not being reported. Anything major? No. But I would like to see these other events get, their spot here on the map. I'd like to actually see them turn on the preliminary data system here for quakes that are smaller than, I think they use like a 2.5 threshold. These have been reviewed, I'm guessing. That's why they're up there. Reviewed. And the other one, reviewed as well, I'm sure. Reviewed. So they won't get added up here on the map unless a human reviews them. So I'm glad someone reviewed them, but they may want to take a glance there and look at these other earthquakes that have been occurring out here. So, but again, nothing big, no major concern for Mount Rainier, just some periodic earthquake activity. There's been no inflation up there across that volcano. We'll double check that. We can go to we can go over here to the USGS volcano site real quick and see where it's at. I was trying to organize my bookmarks out here, but not having very luck. There's just a lot of a lot of sites here that I like to look at or found interesting that I want to go back and look at, So, wow, where's my... I think I messed them up here. USGS volcanoes. that should be able to, there's Kilauea Volcano. So we're just going to go up here to Mount Rainier real quick and see what the seismograph stations look like. Or not seismograph stations, excuse me, the GPS, maybe some tilt meters up here as well. This is at Mount Rainier. There's the earthquake activity this morning. It does look like it's occurring on the western side here, the summit there of Mount Rainier. A lot of the swarming, that stirred up back in July and August, started down here, and then it worked its way up north here, closer to this seismograph station. There was actually some migration going on. There's another seismograph station that's just blown. That's the one I showed you. It's out of whack. It could be ice buildup, and when you get ice cluttering instrument up there, it's going to do that. But at least we have that one working. See if any GPS stations here are working. We do have, June 2025, and then right now, this is very minor uptick. Nothing out of the norm that I see. It does have these seasonal changes here where, after snow melt and whatnot, the ground will absorb the water and the runoff and then kind of act like a sponge. So this is a very small amount of inflation. I don't see anything of any noteworthy mentioning there. Up north, that one's offline. It would be nice to have some others in the vicinity here. I don't know why they only have a couple over off on the eastern side. Up north, further up north, nothing of any abnormal inflation going on there as well. The tilt meter, pretty much the same thing, fairly level. If anything, maybe going down across that area. But man, yeah, I really wish we had some more stations up there around the summit area. Got lots of seismograph stations, some of them working, some not so much. This one's further away from the earthquake activity. That's why these events are looking like that. There's the 2.2, and then another, it's got to be at least a 2-pointer, but they counted this one here, but not this one. And some of the smaller quakes aren't going to show up on this seismograph station because it's so far away, but there's definitely still some smaller microquake activity up there across the summit of Mount Rainier Volcano in Washington. Now, far as Mount St. Helens goes, let's see what we got. They've been having a little bit of earthquake activity as well in the last couple months. Not as big as the Mount Rainier Volcano, but still a little bit happening. The seismograph station's fairly legit looking, right? It's a little overblown, but you're at least going to see some of the smaller microquake activity stirring up, and it's very small. If the amplitude's turned up this high to see some of these little bitty marks, and it's working, but there's nothing big going on there. As far as any major earthquake activity goes at Mount St. Helens, and there's really, of course, no need to report any of that because really nothing's going on. There was one from it's a 0.0. There was one from yesterday, 1924. 1924 from yesterday. Yeah, that's going to be a good one to try to find that one, a little 0.0. I mean, I see a couple out here, but nothing in the 1900 time period. Yeah, 1924 from yesterday. Anyway, getting off of this, I mean, I try to focus on these volcanoes because it is in a highly populated area or close to a highly populated area, which could have, major consequences there for the Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia area should we get a volcanic eruption at Mount Rainier with all that glacier buildup on there, a lot of snow and ice. But for now, nothing of the fact when it comes to anything explosive going on across Mount Rainier. Just some earthquake activity, and yes, some not being reported. Yellowstone National Park up here got a couple earthquakes, even some this morning, so we better go see what's going on there across Yellowstone super volcano. And this would be an area, if this thing were even getting close to having an eruption, we would see massive inflation all across that caldera and surrounding region, because it's not like Mount St. Helens. I guarantee you, it would show up a lot bigger and more mightier in terms of the earthquake activity, the inflation. It would go nuts. I guarantee you. But we don't have that. Yes, we have a little bit of earthquake activity, but those are very small, and there's not even a whole bunch since last night's update. A couple smaller ones there that they actually reported. See, up at USGS or the USGS Yellowstone area, they report even the smallest ones out here. They used to not. They used to only show, certain ones when after review, but they've done something up here that I can tell that they've adjusted their preliminary threshold reporting out here. Now we just need to get them to do that across Mount Rainier, and we'll be good. Different agency network, I believe, even though it's kind of underneath the same thing as the USGS volcanoes. It's a PNSN network that monitors and reports that, I believe. Oil fields of Texas still rocking and rolling. One earthquake outside of Stroud. Been out here a number of times when I'm out storm chasing there in the spring. Let's see if we got any oil field operations out there. I don't see it. Pretty shallow earthquake, though. Doesn't mean there hasn't been some oil field operations out here. A lot of times we'll read it on the map that says, so-and-so oil field area. But I don't see anything. Just a little bitty 2.4 out there right now. The New Madrid seismic zone, a couple earthquakes this morning after midnight. Had 3 of them within the vicinity there of the New Madrid zone, including a couple 2s. Things are starting to move out here. That's, this area is a major hazard for a big earthquake. Talking upper 7s, potentially lower 8 magnitude range. Could you imagine an 8-pointer today out there just north of Memphis? That'd be literally an 8-pointer out here in this region. The entire eastern portion of the country would feel it. Even an upper 7 out here. I guess when that happened back in 1811, 1812, it had bells ringing hundreds and hundreds of miles away. The old church bells, I believe, that they used to use. They still use them. But yeah, definitely big time potential out there. Who knows when that's going to happen far as another earthquake. It's a little different. It's an intraplate boundary, maybe potentially a failed rift system out here from a long, long time ago. When it comes to the plate boundaries out here along the West Coast, it's more probable to put a regular reoccurrence interval on a plate boundary out here, or even a fault system. But these intraplate areas are kind of hard to determine when there's a little gnat about ready to go in my drink, so I had to grab my drink here real quick. No telling when the next one will happen, but more than likely it probably will. 1811, 1812, well over 200 years ago. Also, little bitty earthquake down here across Ladson, South Carolina. That's getting close to a major seismically hazardous zone. In fact, it's right in it. Look at that. This area had a big old earthquake a while back here. I'm going to show you guys just real quick. We're going to go 5.0 and above. We're just going to take a little trip back in history today in this area because it's anywhere out here that has major potential. That'll cover it good enough. So this earthquake right here, look at that, 7.0, directly underneath North Charleston. Something like that today, ooh, man, that would not be good. There's a lot of population density out here, a lot of infrastructure built up. But it's happened. There's been big events out there. And that's right in that major hazard zone, just outside of it, looks like. But 1886. Yeah, definitely well over 100 and close to 150 years, right? This is another area that will see a big event eventually. No telling when, though. Do have to watch these little hints, these little clues here of smaller earthquake activity around the region. That's where that 1.9 struck today. All right, taking a look here at the earthquake 3D globe on this Friday. We do have quite a bit of newer activity. As I mentioned, two super deep earthquakes. One over here across the Indonesia area, one back across the Tonga Trench. That type of scenario should alter the stress and strain out here across this region. I can pretty much expect some larger activity following these two deeper events. Of course, we've seen a lot of deep activity here in the Tonga Trench recently, so I know it's building up. New Zealand, couple threes down there, three three-pointers down across South Island area, it looks like. Nothing big going on there for now. Those actually look like they may be under South Island area. Japan got a 5.5. A couple more earthquakes up across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench where that 8-pointer struck. There's that 5-pointer there in the Bangladesh area from yesterday. Nothing new to report here for now. I don't see any further migration of that pressure momentum. It's all roughly down south here across the Java Trench and Myanmar area. Pretty good cluster of quakes out around the Turkey area once again. Just continuous earthquake activity with an occasional 6 or so every couple months. I do think this is leading up to something bigger. The question is what? You know, there's definitely something going on around this area. A lot of swarming around the Santorini volcano earlier this year. A bunch of movement near Cyprus. Turkey swarming in multiple locations. Atlantic Ocean, quiet, super quiet out there. Middle America Trench and the Peru-Chile Trench down here. Typical movement. It's a little heavier down here across South America area right now, but I don't see anything big. Just a cluster of deep earthquakes. And Hawaii. Let's go see what's going on out here real quick. It's been pretty active around this area as well. Even got an earthquake up around Mauna Loa. Pretty shallow up there. I've been looking at that. There's been a number of earthquakes around the Mauna Loa area and in general around the Big Island and underneath this area. So there is a lot going on. It could have something to do with the weight and the stress and the strain of the buildup of the Big Island upon the Pacific Plate, right? Eventually, this is going to form new volcanic chains, and it's in the process right now with the Loihi Seamount out here and a couple other seamounts. This will continue to build, not near term, very long ways away. But I do expect the Kilauea volcano should be getting close here to another eruption. Let's go take a look here real quick. Oh, are we working? Yes, we are. Nothing new in terms of any eruption activity. It does look like they mentioned an overflow, indicating magma is high in the vent. Let's see what the deformation data is looking like here. This is pretty good information when it comes to figuring out what's going on as far as maximum pressurization goes underneath this area. We're just about ready to have an eruption out there. We're not quite matched to the previous eruption, but we don't have to be. In fact, the last couple times there have been a little bit couple steps lower than the previous one at times. So we're getting close. We're having overflows, overspills. We should see this pretty soon. Could be today. Could be here before this update's done. Definitely getting close there. All right, let's see what else we got here. Maybe some space weather activity. I wish I could say we're looking at decent space weather activity, but there's not a whole lot going on. Down in the B-flare category again. We do have a coronal hole numbered 98 here. This is the old image, right? The SDO image is not working. 98 is center disk of the sun, but not perfectly lined up here with the Earth-Sun plane. That will be interesting to watch because the last few times that we've had a coronal hole of a sizable nature and not offset in terms of north or south pointing, in the center here, it seems like the earthquake activity really gets stirred up in terms of larger movement. We've seen it here in the last several months here every time we get a massive coronal hole. In fact, when this struck back in September, we had a bunch of movement happening. I think that's when all the activity in the Philippines was stirring up. A 7-pointer and a couple 6s. So 98 is going to be facing us here in a number of days. This is a more recent image. The other one was about a day behind. It's hard to see, but it's still there. But over the next couple days, we'll watch that because these coronal holes have these magnetic lines here that they don't loop back in on themselves like they do on the sunspots. They actually shoot straight out from the sun into space, and I think it has something to do with that stirs up the earthquake activity. Yeah, and I'm still standing on my words here that this last one was a big flop when it comes to all the CME activity, the aurora activity, multiple X flare activity. Well, nothing happened, and there's still earthquake activity occurring around the planet, but that happens on any given day. But I have yet to see any major movement from all that space weather activity. We had a significant space weather event, and how long is it going to take? Is it going to take years? that's irrelevant there to put a yearly number on it. If it's going to happen, you think it would happen almost immediately or in near term, but I still have yet to see any major movement. But with this coronal hole activity, seems like as soon as that's facing the planet, it's almost instant or like one day after. So we'll watch that and see what happens out here. A little bit of movement there off the coast of Costa Rica, 4.5. That's down there across the southern end of the Middle America Trench. Nothing big going on there for now, but we definitely have some movement happening. We can see this activity on any given day, regardless of space weather activity, except for those coronal holes. I do think that plays a part in something out here, stirring up the plates. All right, back to space weather activity. We'll watch that. Flare threat still remains low, 15% chance for M flare, X flare at 1%. Looking at the magnetogram image here, I'm going to go back over to this one here. It's still, I don't know why, but it takes a long time here to load. I get it. It's a pretty big, high-resolution radar image, but even so, it's like, and it's not me. I can easily stream in 4K and download multiple movies here at the same time and not have a slowdown. But this image, this site here, maybe it's capped out in terms of what it can upload as far as the speed goes. But a couple sunspots out here, even some newer ones down here on the southeastern limb of the sun. Not super impressed with them. The sunspot cores out here look fairly weak. There's not a whole lot of complexity within any of these. This is just going to be maybe a risk for some occasional C flare activity, but not a whole lot of potential for some stronger flaring out there for now. No major roars in the forecast either. Pretty quiet in terms of any flaring activity. Take a look here at the Storm Prediction Center for severe weather. Got a little marginal risk here across portions of the south today, up around the Tennessee area as well. 2% chance for some tornado activity. Wind, not so much hail threat. So tornado risk and wind threat there today for the severe weather department. Far as the weather trends go, taking a glance here, I'm waiting for them to put some more rain back in the California area. We got a change coming up here. It's definitely interesting to watch. It's going to be a little uncertainty on where this cold air is going to be. Remember last night it was showing more across the west coast. Now it's shifted way to the east here around the Rockies. That would bring a lot of snow out there. There's even some colder systems coming down to California later in December. But it's too far out to be definite. This could change from right now till tonight. It may show a different setup. But this type of scenario, if this rings true with that massive cold air, that is severe weather threat and tornado potential across this area into December. And yes, we can get tornado activity even in the south down into December. So we'll definitely check back on that as we get a little bit closer to that time period. The live seismograph stations out there pretty quiet. Got one little earthquake on the Kagoshima station, Japan. That's the Nankai Trough area. There's not a whole lot happening on it right now. I don't see any registered earthquakes, but it's been swarming nearby. A lot of deeper activity recently into that subduction zone, and this is the area that the Japanese government put out a mega quake warning for last year. It never happened, But they know the stress and strain's building up out there. The GPS are crazy in terms of not inflation, but vertical uplift. They know it's building up out there, so it's a spot where we could see a next mega quake. But then again, California could have its own mega quake. I would definitely consider the maximum potential magnitude out here for the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, and I agree with a lot of people, the 8.1 number comes into play. The last decent one was 7.9, and that failed to take this little portion with it, the extreme southern end. So when it goes next time, which it will take this end because it's been over 300 years for this little southern end of the San Andreas Fault, not to mention the rest of the southern branch. When this goes as a whole, then we get that 8.1 magnitude, and it will. There's no way it's going to not hit this part again because it should have hit it last time. But if it didn't hit it last time, then it's definitely going to take this area of the fault with it when it goes, resulting in an 8.1. And of course, there's a lot of talk and speculation that the Cascadia could go and then trigger the San Andreas Fault, and it's definitely a scenario. Would it go all at once? I don't think so. I think it would go into sections here, resulting in their own respective number, not as a 10-pointer. It's not set up like that. But if the Cascadia went, it potentially definitely could trigger the San Andreas Fault in segments out here. All right. Have a good one, folks. Member drawing coming up here this afternoon. What time this afternoon, I couldn't tell you, but it's definitely going to be stirring up out here. We got the member drawing coming up. Let me alert box. Let me put this on block here real quick. I'm just going to look on my members, see where we're at in terms of our member number. Hold on just a second. I'm going to show you guys. Just getting some stuff off of here. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back right now. Display capture. There we go. We're at 147 still. These are our newest members. If we can get above that 150 mark by the time the member drawing's done today, we'll pick out 3 winners. If not, we're going to stick to the two winners. And the prizes are, I know I don't mention it a lot, but most of the time when people win this drawing here, which is a live drawing that's picked out of a fishbowl, every single one of you guys are in a fishbowl, you get your choice of a $50 Visa, MasterCard, or gift card of your choice. It can be electronic or it can be sent to you directly after a verification check, just to make sure you are who you say you are. That way we don't get any spam issues going on. Or if you want like a geology mining kit or even Earthmaster t-shirt, we got all sorts of sizes and colors for that. I think it's a pretty good deal, pretty neat. So if we pick out 3, man, the chances of winning out here is pretty significant. 2 a little bit less, but still that's a number I'm going to stick to as long as we're above 100. If we drop below 100 again, we have to just drop it down to 1 and so on. But if we can stay up above 150, that's 3 each month. I think that's a pretty good deal. Higher chances of winning when the odds are better when we throw one more potential winner in there. So that's coming up this afternoon. We'll get that taken care of. Got a few written down. I'm probably going to need Missy Mimi's help. Writing down 147 members on tickets. It's a little time consuming here, but we'll see you guys out here this afternoon. It'll be a separate live stream. Make sure you click that notification bell here on the channel so you can get notified when we go back live for the member drawing. We'll see you guys out here later. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. Enjoy your Friday.